first round pick, but their first pick in the second round was, Drake Jackson, a edge rusher out of USC. He played outside linebacker. He played edge rusher as well at USC. Do you anticipate that he'll start opposite of Nick Bosa? And do you think that was a good pick by the 49ers?
Yeah, so I'll start with the good pick question, then transition into the other part. I do think it was a great pick by the 49ers because I thought Drake Jackson wouldn't be there at 61, especially with how the board fell. Boye Mafe was the last rusher that I thought would go in front of Drake Jackson. He was selected at 40 by Seattle. So there's a 21 pick difference between where Boye Mafe was selected and Jackson. So then I thought, okay, where would David Ajabo go? Because obviously the injury really didn't give him a clear path to where he'd be selected. He goes 45, and still from 45 to 61, with the affinity that teams have for the pass rusher and also the importance and the value that players had in this certain draft, I thought that Jackson would be gone between 45 and 61. And instead, he fell to the 49ers at 61. Good pick for sure. He was underutilized, or he was like poorly utilized really at USC. Transitioned to a linebacker, had a bunch of weight fluctuation because of the coaching staff asks. He played his best as a freshman, 5.5 sacks, I believe. Total, I think, was 17 in 3 years, but I don't really care about the production. I care about the traits and how they'll translate to the NFL game. And I do think that Drake Jackson has those that traits, especially when working with Chris Kocurek. You can see him potentially line up on the outside or the interior. Now, about your point about do I think he'll start? I personally don't really know, and I don't really care, because for me, the starters on a defensive line aren't necessarily your top players. They're the guys who will play in base packages, who are kind of there to defend the run, right? When you start, it's normally those sub packages where you have players to defend the run, and that's where maybe a guy like Samson Ebukam might play a little more. That's where maybe a Jordan Willis might play a little more, something like that. And so maybe you'll see different players start in that position. But here's what I'll say. Arden Key last year played in under 50% of defensive snaps in every single game last year, yet he was one of the most important contributors, probably the third most important contributor on the defensive line, behind both Nick Bosa and Arik Armstead. And so when I look at Arden Key in that way, it shows me that you can be impactful without playing a majority of the snaps or without starting necessarily because you're a pass rush specialist. And that's what I expect from Drake Jackson in year one. And I do think that if he shows out in camp and can beat out some of the other guys that are currently at the position, he's got the potential to start getting a serious consideration for those pass rushing reps. But yeah, that's something we'll have to see. What about you?
Absolutely. Just got to say, what's good to 49er Faithful. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Kimberly and also David V. What's good? Appreciate you guys tuning in to the stream tonight. Yeah, I was surprised that he was there like you, but it's definitely a need for the 49ers, I feel. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they value the edge rushing position. Games are won and lost in the trenches, and why not continue to make that position a strength? And I think that's what they did with the Drake Jackson pick. And not only did they do that, but they have a young guy. He's only 21 years old. Chris Kocurek can mold him. We've seen Chris Kocurek do wonders with Kerry Hyder. We've seen him do wonders with Arden Key. Arden Key was a bust with the Raiders, and he turned out his best season with the 49ers. And I think he got paid in Jacksonville, I believe, Arden Key. So I can't wait to see Drake Jackson, learn from Nick Bosa, learn from Chris Kocurek, and Drake Jackson will be under, team control for the next 3 to 4 years. So you look at all the other edge rushers on the team, they're all basically on 1-year deals. So I think it was imperative to get an edge rusher to line up opposite of Nick Bosa. And do I think he'll start? No, I don't think he'll start. I think Samson will probably get a bulk of the snaps. I could see Jordan Willis. There's also the gentleman we signed from the Colts. Last name starts with the T.
Kimoko Toure? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so he'll most likely be on pass rushing situations. I don't anticipate he'll be on, as you mentioned, base formation where we're trying to stop the run. I think that's kind of like Samson. But it's interesting. We mentioned Samson. He's got, I think, $5 million left on his contract, the last year of his contract, but the 49ers can cut him and only owe him $1 million. So it'll be interesting to see if Samson will make the 53-man active roster. He could be a late August cut, depending upon
how the training
depending upon how the other guys do, but also I think Samson, he kind of struggled the first half of last year, but I think he really picked up his production in the second half, so hopefully that will continue. But he could be a cut option. But yeah, I like the Drake Jackson pick, and the defensive line is the strength of this team, and I think they're wise by keeping it a strength.
Yeah, that's a very good point you bring up there, especially real quick on the Ebukam part. Yeah. I tweeted out on March 9th, I remember, that the 49ers could save $6.25 million if they cut Ebukam. At the time, I wasn't necessarily saying that we should cut Ebukam, but I was saying I didn't think it would be the best for roster building if we held him on that big of a cap hit. I think the cap hit is $8.25 million for 2022. I didn't think it'd be that I didn't think it'd be the best scenario if we kept him on that cap hit. And I think that was only heightened by the draft and by our moves. Because when we added Kemoko Turay. I know I'm not as high, but we added Kerry Hyder as well. We added not only Drake Jackson, but also Kalia Davis, who we'll talk about probably later in the draft. So we added a good amount of bodies to this defensive line on smaller contracts. So that does raise questions if other people beat out Ebukam in camp. Maybe he takes a pay cut. Maybe we cut him, something like that. But I don't know if he'll actually play this season on the cap hit that he's currently scheduled for. So, yeah, great point there.
Yeah, I noticed that after the end of the season, I was just looking up, okay, well, who's a possible cut candidate? And I just noticed that Samsung's contract, $1 million of the $5 or $6 million is guaranteed. And I was like, well, okay, well, he could be a cut consideration. I would be surprised if they did, unless he just kind of falls flat on his face in training camp. Then I could see them maybe doing that. But the 49ers last year, they kept 8 to 10 guys on that defensive line. 49ers love to get fresh guys to stop the run and go after the passer. So I think they will most likely keep him, but it's definitely something that to keep an eye on. That's for sure.